Guidance for converting a traditional class into an online instructional method during COVID-19, Part 3, Quality Matters Criteria. The objectives of the presentation will reveal the relevance of Quality Matters criteria. Recognize that according to Murillo and Jones, Quality Matters standards can be applied to an online class. However, research has been revealed that there are specific standards that have been found varying in degrees of feasibility for implementation. Recall Rahim's encouragement on adding formative and summative assessments. Also, determine Steele, Holbeck, and Mandernack's suggestion to evaluate if the instructional strategy helps students understand the content better, is more engaging, and can be interpreted from multiple perspectives. The proposal of this presentation is to determine higher education online migration needs to meet the increased demand for effective Quality Matters criteria due to the COVID-19 social distancing situation by integrating e-learning quality and learning effectiveness and accessibility standards for instructors and students. The Quality Matters rubric has 8 general standards for course design that can still be relevant during the COVID-19 situation and for the future. This includes the course overview and introduction, learning objectives, assessment and measure, instructional materials, course activities and learner interaction, course technology, learner and instructor support, and accessibility and usability. Also included is a link for the higher education specific review standards from the QM Higher Education rubric. Research from Murillo and Jones has revealed Quality Matters standards that can be implemented specifically during the COVID-19 pandemic. They conducted research to determine online Quality Matters standards that would be specifically applicable to online courses during the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically examined which standard would be the easiest and most applicable in compliance with Quality Matters standards, and reviewed and measured in varying degrees of ease and difficulty for implementation of each of the 42 QM standards and provided implementation action examples. For the General Standard 1 of Course Overview and Introduction, Murillo and Jones find that most of the standards are easy to implement and include solution examples, such as on the home page to add online navigation instructions, how the course works in an online environment, intro modules, email communication instructions, teacher self-intro video, and the technology needed. For the standards that were found at a moderate implementation level, solution examples include on the home page that it needs a course description, an example of online course structure. For the General Standard 2 on learning objectives, Murillo and Jones find that most of the standards are moderately able to be implemented, and this includes solution examples of adding learner perspective, learning objectives, an example of module level learning objectives, and overview pages of module activities. And for the difficult solution example, they suggest to align the objectives with the revised Bloom's taxonomy. For the General Standard 3 of Assessment and Measure, Murillo and Jones found that one of the standards that was easy to implement, a solution could be adding in a grading scale displayed on the syllabus and homepage. And for the standards that were moderately able to be implemented, solution examples could be adding a table that shows relations between the objectives and assessment on the homepage, checklists, and rubrics. And for the difficult standard to implement, they suggest adding time criteria for feedback and instructor training on best methods and resources for timely feedback. For the General Standard 4 of Instructional materials, Morello and Jones find some of the standards at a moderate implementation level, and the solution examples for those could be to add a table of relation between the objectives and assessment on the home page, module level learning objectives, assign readings and module activities, and adding instructional material listed in the modules. For the difficult standards to implement, they could not determine any solution examples because it all is dependent on the course specifics. For the General Standard 5 of Learning Activities and Learner Interaction, Morella and Jones determined that all the standards are at a moderate implementation level and suggest examples to add a table of relation between objectives and assessment, interaction activities, online communication expectations, and requirement criteria for the online environment and interactions. For the General Standard 6 on course technology, Morello and Jones determined that the standard that is easy to implement could be to add privacy policies to the intro module page. For the standard that is moderate to implement, they suggest to add readings and engaging multimedia, various media and technologies. And for the standard that was difficult to implement, they could not determine any findings because it is dependent on the course specifics. For the General Standard 7 on learner support, Morello and Jones determined that all the standards are easy to implement and suggest to add to the syllabus page technical support contact info, accessibility policies and instructions, and support services and instructions. For the General Standard 8 on accessibility and usability, Morello and Jones determined that the easy standards to implement should include solution examples of adding, editing a navigation sidebar, numerical system headings, multimedia links and labels. And for the standards that were moderately able to be implemented, they suggest adding in accessible content instructions, multimedia content formats, vendor accessibility statements, and technology placeholders. In conclusion, this project will prompt discovering new and utilizing pre-existing quality matters criteria to migrate traditional courses to a fully online instructional format. Once these sources are identified and implemented, they can be utilized to benefit an institution's online instructional migration. This will result in beneficial sustainability in the areas of enrollment, academics, and accessibility for the institution's faculty, staff, and students during and after the COVID-19 social distancing situation has ceased. Thank you for reviewing this presentation.